brief introductions because I don't want to take Adrian and David's time. Adrian's a union carpenter, former small business owner, a state rep from the 47th House District of Missouri, and a proud Democrat. He ran 2 unsuccessful campaigns against Chuck Basie, and then he had a tough primary and general election campaign against John Martin, but won with 52% of the vote. And we're really happy he's running again for 2024. And he's going to tell us about his bills in the House. David, if I can, and I just want to mention both Adrian and David are local Missouri boys, born and raised in central Missouri. In fact, David went to Hickman High School, for any of you, whatever they call Hickman, Cupies, that's it. David is both a member of the House of Representatives representing District 46. He originally was chosen by the Democrats to fill a seat in the 45th. Both times he's run, David has not had an opponent, and let's hope he doesn't have one this time. David's a local attorney in his own practice, as well as serving in the House. And I'm very interested in having him talk about some of the bills he's sponsored. Thank you both, Adrian and David, for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having us. This is we both look forward to this.
You're the senior, buddy.
I was gonna say, do we need some questions? Do I need to get you started with a question?
Yeah, no, yeah, we're going to talk about some bills. Is that what we're doing? Right, great. So,
Great.
yeah, well, it's good to be here. And, you know, like I said, I know your birthday's tomorrow, sir, but happy birthday to you. You know, one thing, I did actually have an opponent the first time around. And, you know, Sarah, yeah, so we were able to pull that off. And you know, Sarah was also my campaign manager, I think, the second time. So she did a great job, and we really had great turnout. So she really knows what she's doing. If anyone's needs someone, just don't take her from me if I need her for things. So one of the things I first, one of the things I filed, and I was excited to file this again. You know, initially I didn't really want to do this. So this deals with guns. And so, you know, as a candidate, I kind of wanted to stay away from the gun issue. That's not something I really wanted to be involved with. We're kind of in a red state. And I thought, you know, what's the point? And so I really tried to shy away from that. To a certain extent, I thought, you know, I'm just not going to get involved and just be very neutral about it and kind of stay in the background. But then Uvalde happened over a year ago, and it really sickened me. You know, I remember I had a cousin who had an AK-47, and this is before Uvalde. He came up and I shot it, and at a range, I thought, my goodness, this thing is so powerful. It's like a cannon. And I thought if someone was ever on the other end of this, they would get completely mutilated because the power of that gun. And then when I heard Uvalde happen, and it was either an AK-47, AR-15, very similar, as far as I understand, I thought those kids are going to be demolished. And sure enough, you know, we heard the parents couldn't recognize them. They had to identify them by their shoes. And that really sickened me to the core. And then we had a situation in St. Louis, and a lot of people don't know this. They keep these stories very, they cover these stories. They're very buried about what exactly happened. So in the visual arts communities in Peter Meredith's district, visual arts school in St. Louis, the gunman came in and he shot this teenage girl and blew her arm off. And she laid in the hallway bleeding to death. While the classmates were secured in the location, they could hear her screaming out there dying. And she was out there alone, bleeding to death and dying in the hallway. This is in St. Louis. And then her classmates had to come by and walk by her, over her to get out. And you don't hear those stories. Now, in both of those cases, those were teenagers who went into a gun store and bought an AR-15 style weapon, a teenager, bought boxes of ammo, then went into a school and slaughtered a bunch of people. And there's a similar case, and you know, there's so many we lose track of. Buffalo, New York, someone to a shopping center or a store and did the same thing. So I thought, you know, I'm going to file something that's going to deal with that specific issue, because Republicans often criticize us and they'll say, well, you know, anytime there's a shooting, we file a bill that would have nothing to do with that, it wouldn't have stopped that. So this would have stopped that because these kids got the gun from a gun store legally when they were teenagers. And the interesting thing is when I filed it, I said, I'm just going to file this. This needs to be done. So I filed it, and everyone said, oh, it's not going to go anywhere. Sheree Tolson Rice on the radio. It's not going to get to the House floor. This bill is going nowhere. It's not going to see the light of day. The thing is with Republicans, they know they're wrong about guns, and they're embarrassed about it. So they don't want to talk about it. So it's not a situation that they're proud of. They know they're wrong, and they're beholden to special interests, and they're afraid. So they don't want this to come to the floor. But I kind of tricked them in a roundabout way as I turned my bill into an amendment to an amendment. So and it got very complicated on the House floor, and they had no idea what was going to happen. And initially they knew I was going to do it, and they circumvented me, and they had a plan on the House floor to go around me and not to call on me because they knew I was going to introduce it. And they had planned on doing it at one point, and they knew what I was going to do. So they had another session. It was going to come back to the House floor. And they just did a different, they're presenting a different bill, and they knew I was going to attach my bill. So I tricked them by making an amendment to an amendment. It gets very complicated. But the point is, they got duped. And so I was on the House floor. They mistakenly called on me, thinking I was going to just comment on someone else's amendment, and I introduced it and forced them to vote on it. And they were furious. They were so mad that after I did that, they shut down debate on any more conversation related to the original bill and shut everything down. And they were furious because they did not want to have to press a button. See, they're embarrassed by this because they know that's going to come back to bite them. So they had to go on record voting against this, which is common sense. You talk to people in the military, you talk to Republicans, everyone out here knows there's no good reason for a teenager to be buying an AK-47 by themselves. That's ridiculous. And to go buy 10 boxes of ammo. So anyway, there's that. I don't want to monopolize all the time. So I filed that again. So I'm excited for that to come up again and force them to take a look at that. Another bill, 1702, Drivers Protection Act, basically protects drivers from getting pulled over for minor offenses, tail lights, that type of thing. You can get pulled over for speeding, of course, not having insurance, but just little things like a dent in your bumper or tail light out. There's no real reason for that. HB 1703 I filed, which a lot of times when a prosecutor files a case against somebody, if it gets defeated at the early stage, at the preliminary hearing stage, they can keep refiling the same case over and over. And so if you're innocent and they file a case against you and you beat it at a preliminary hearing, or for example, they're not ready, they don't have their witnesses, the witnesses have disappeared, or they don't want to testify because they weren't telling the truth, they can keep refiling a case and keep forcing a person to bond out. And I had that happen to a client of mine where he just had to continually bond out at least one time, and they'll arrest you again, which is just not fair, right? Why should they be able to arrest you over and over and over and pull you out of your place of employment because they're not ready? So basically the bill says in a nutshell, they can do it once, they can dismiss once, they can't arrest you again. And then the second time, if it gets dismissed, you're done. They can't just keep arresting the same person over and over. Another bill, 1704, it was actually on the news last night, deals with police review boards. And it basically says that, so a while ago, there was a police bill of rights that created all these restrictions for how they investigate officers, which is fine, I'm all for it. The problem is that bled over into review boards. I don't believe that was initial intention. So someone can only be investigated by an officer a couple times, interviewed by an officer 2 times. An officer can only be interviewed 2 times if they believe an officer engaged in misconduct. So that's to protect the police from, having to be investigated, indefinitely. So what I did was, the problem with that is, after that happened, if someone came to the review board to file a complaint, they could not investigate the officer again or talk with the officer or interview the officer again because they had already been interviewed by the police department twice. And it also had a 90-day time limit, and that caused problems with the review board. So this bill basically says, that's fine, you can do all those things, but it doesn't apply to review boards. And it actually, a lot of people don't realize this. This passed the House. It was turned into an amendment and passed the House. I had Republicans speaking in favor of it. And it got to a conference committee and got pulled out right before. So this almost passed last time. And it would be transformational for Columbia. I'm also considering a bill on catalytic converters. That's an epidemic we have in Missouri around the country, catalytic converter thefts. There's already been a bill filed. I worked with Representative Mayhew the first time he filed, a Republican, and it basically has all these penalties if you sell a stolen catalytic converter, because people are getting, especially in Columbia, they're getting their catalytic converters ripped off. It's causing a huge problem. My only issue with that is I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it, because I don't want to necessarily add another felony for that, because it's already a crime. It's already theft. It's already stealing. So I want to focus more on the dealers and the retailers, and then making sure they're not allowed to do that. And they might lose their license for buying those catalytic converters. And the person who stole them, they're already going to be in trouble because it's theft anyway. And there's a couple other things I'm thinking about, maybe some of their naming bills to honor some people that are important to Missouri. And that's something I'll figure out the next few weeks. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm excited about it. And I think we can do big things this session if we're committed and we're diligent.
Are you taking questions?
I'll take questions, sure. Thank you for that, Adrian, by the way.
You're welcome. I don't have a question for him, but that was a question just to see if you all wanted to ask him one.
Yeah, I don't see anything in chat. So, and I don't see any hands raised. So let's keep going. And then maybe by the end, people will think of something.
Does that mean it's my turn?
Yes, please.
Oh my, we got all day?
You do tend to talk. I'll get my shepherd's crook out if you go too long. Yoink you off the stage.
May need it. I got a couple pages here. So the Boone County Assessor's Office, we're talking about this bill that passed that has been pushed on the counties to give tax breaks to people on Social Security and fixed incomes. That was a way the state legislature kind of punted that situation to the counties, and it's not working. The counties depend on a lot of that tax money for whatever reason they're using it for. A lot of times it's used for education. So I've been working with Mr. Moore. Missouri already has a Missouri tax credit program, and so we're trying to improve that program. That program states that if you're a renter and single income of $27,500, you can take advantage of that program and get those tax relief for the property that you have. If you're married, that we're trying to take that $27,500 income, yearly income, to $45,000 or less. That gives people more people the opportunity to take advantage of that program. And if you're married, that figure is currently $29,500. We're trying to move that to $50,000 or less. Again, this is all to make this program more viable for more people. The problem with the program that we've left to the counties is just because you're on Social Security and on a fixed income doesn't mean you need to tax it. A lot of people are very wealthy and still collect Social Security. So so if you're married, we'll move it to $50,000. If you're owner occupied and single, that limit now is $30,000, and we're trying to move it to $50,000. If you're that's if you're single. If you're married, it's $34,000, and we're trying to move it to $65,000. I haven't filed that bill yet, but it's all but ready. My first bill filed is my super PAC bill, which basically would take super PACs down to a PAC level where your donors have to be accounted for. Your donations are limited to the same levels as a PAC. The Republicans talk about all this money that comes in the Missouri for our initiative petition process, but they don't really address that problem. And if we really wanted to get women's rights back, we really need to get rid of super PACs. After the Citizens United verdict, they've been able to buy our judicial system at the top, and that judicial system has overturned Roe Wade. So we have to understand the core problem, and that's super PACs. I've got a bill to file here. It's ready to go. I just got to get there to file it. I'm going to do it Monday. Elementary ag class. So teaching elementary kids the basics of growing basic foods, stuff that Lyra does now. That's a pilot program now. We're going to make it a state required program. Try to. I have a bill that incentivizes hydroelectricity. You know, Republicans throw a fit when they see these big wind turbines, and they fear solar panels and climate. They don't want to be shut down when we talk about climate issues. But they do have underwater turbines. We have 2 major rivers that go through our state and those turbines could supply electricity to all those smaller municipalities. We should be taking advantage of that. I have a net metering bill that I filed last year that I'm refiling this year. That basically allows us to have our solar panels and get paid for the power that we produce from those panels onto the grid. Of course, the electric companies have already said something to me about it. Of course, they don't like it, but if we're as an individual able to supply electricity to the grid, we ought to get paid for it. I also have, you know, the federal government supplies tax credits for solar panels. It's at 30% tax credit now, and then after so many years, it gets less and less and less. And I've got a bill that would have the state keep up with that 30%. So the federal government would, after a couple of years, it goes down to 25% to 20%. And I've got a bill that would require the state to keep it at that 30% rate. If we're going to make change, we got to kind of force it somehow. You know, David Tyson Smith has a gun bill, and he's done what he can to manipulate the House to get it to end. I've also working with Michaela Skelton, and I've sent a bill to Moms Demand Action to take a look at, and it's a bill that would overturn all the regulatory incentives on gun safety that the Republicans have overturned in the last 20 years and re-implement those policies. The reason I tackled it this way is because Republicans' argument is we're going to take away your guns. Well, those previous policies didn't take away anybody's guns. And so this is just a way to say, no, these policies reduce gun violence. And so I've got numbers coming now that will identify the raises in gun violence per the elimination of those policies. I've got more sustainable. I'm working with Republicans right now. We met with USDA last week in trying to create a new market for our farmers with the industrial monopolization of our farming industry when it comes to meat and crops. We need to be able to give farmers a market back. So I'm working with Republicans now with trying to create a new hemp industry in Missouri. We used to be a prominent grower of some of the best strands of hemp in the nation. And so we're trying to get that market back. Hemp can replace plastic products. If you're paying attention to our soil and the microparticles of plastic in our soils, which is also means that we're putting it in our bodies. And of course, our oceans and all that plastic that we produce, that hemp is a sustainable way to eliminate plastic products. Now, when I say eliminate, that's bold. It's kind of like saying we're going to get rid of coal. We are definitely going to try and reduce the amount that we produce, and that's necessary. There's all kinds of things. They've in California, they're doing research on the cannabinoids in hemp that would reduce or eliminate Alzheimer's, dementia, and those types of ailments. That's not including CBD that they're already producing. It's an anti-inflammatory. So there's many things. Construction products. The guy brought me hemp rebar the other day. So hemp concrete for building houses. It's a product that reduces fire resistant. Insulation is tremendous with hemp concrete. and of course, as durable as it can be. A lot of your fiberglass products can also be used with hemp instead of fiberglass. So there's many, many benefits to hemp, and we should be leading on it because we have the appropriate grounds to do it. And we used to be primary producers in Missouri of hemp before they made it illegal. Now we're working on, the USDA has crop insurance for hemp in 20 states except for ours. So we're working with them now to get that installed to encourage the production of hemp. The banking system is still scared of it because they still equate it with medical or with marijuana. So we're trying to figure that out now. And that's not just me. I'm pushing it, but I am working with multiple Republicans to push it in different ways. And the immediate ways is without legislation and using the programs we had just to expand them. But we are working on some legislation too. That may be something that's ongoing, which means I need to get elected again. So those are the major bills. I also want to let you know that not only am I on ag, workforce development, rural development, and small business committees, I just got put on appropriations for public safety, corrections, transportation, and revenue. That starts next week. That's going to be, it's going to have a big learning curve on that one, but I asked for it. And I'm excited to get started on it. We've got the expansion of I-70 coming through here, and it's important to have somebody in Boone County on that committee. So, and make sure our dollars get spent correctly when it comes to this central Missouri. So that's the quick version of all that. Any questions? I know I flew through it.
Adrian, I'd like to know more about the new committee, what it does, public safety.
Well, it's an appropriation, so it's about funding, and so I'm getting ready to. Monday is when I get started on diving into it. I got Del Taylor, who's on budget, also when it comes to rural, when it comes to ag. And so I do have a big learning curve, but like I said, I asked for it. So I'm obviously willing to put the time in. But it's just about the money that is appropriated for certain projects in the state. And whether it's socialism. So this will have a lot to do with, our prison systems, of course, transportation, which has to do with trains and anything that's used for transportation. And so the highway system that we're trying to spend a ton of money, $2.8 billion for the expansion of I-70. So there's a lot of money in that needs dispersed properly. So.
Well, now we're getting warmed up because the chat is piling up with questions. Let's go to Sue and Herb and let them ask their question, and then I'll bring in some from the chat, starting back to where I see them starting.
Okay. Fire.
Appropriation, and you're in one of the subcommittees, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so that's a little more understanding for us lay people.
Yes, it's a subcommittee. Because there's a lot of different aspects to government and how they spend their money. And so there's several subcommittees to keep it all in track.
This will be a quick one. Kathy, quite a
wait,
while back.
Herb's had the big question. I just was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Herb.
I would like to ask each of you wise persons for your expectations of challenges and opportunities for the 2024 election, particularly regarding the U.S. House, the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate.
Go ahead, David. I've spoke quite a bit already.
No, yeah, and Adrian had a lot of good things to say. Well, as far as the elections go and what's going to happen in the House, so the last time there were elections down there a couple of years ago, the problem is everyone digs into these extreme positions. Republicans more so than anybody, right? So the problem is they're going to take extreme positions on a lot of issues, and it's going to be hard to get things done because they're not going to want to compromise because they have to pander to their base. And one thing about Republicans is they eat their own all the time. And I remember filing last time, we go down to the Secretary of State's office, stand in line. You'll have a Republican that's, you know, respected. He's been there a while, and there'll be a Republican right behind him running against him, primarying him. I mean, they have no mercy. And so they have to take these far right positions. And the problem is when we're down there trying to pass legislation, you have to work together, right? You have to work together. You have to come together, especially over on the Senate side, because your bills will come out of the House and they're always getting killed in the Senate. And so with those guys over there digging in, taking their extreme positions and not coming off of anything, we'll see, the sad thing is it's almost becoming, I mean, we get normalized to it. But what's happening down there is not normal. I mean, I heard a rep say something about, he was talking about poverty, Republican, and he said, you know, if you're poor, you only have one problem. But if you're rich, now then you have a lot of problems, which is ridiculous. That's the mentality, as if poverty is just one issue. No, it's healthcare, it's safety, it's education, it's a whole host of things. And so, you know, safety for yourself, for your children. But so that's what I anticipate, is that there are going to be people that are going to be dug in. I think it's going to be more on the Senate side, as far as I think we can get things done in the House. We're still going to have those issues, but I think when bills go over to the Senate, I think things are going to get bogged down over there, unfortunately.
All right, let me give you all some hope, maybe, if David's finished anyway. You finished there, bud? All right. We do this election cycle. We do have some hope out there. You know, we have the potential to pick up 6 seats, and I'm going to say 3 for sure. We lost one race in Kansas City by 37 votes. That race can be picked up with just a tad bit more work. And so there's one in Springfield. We lost for less than 400 votes. And so there's a potential for 6 pickups. We got to hold on to what we have. If we pick up 3 seats, we take them out of the supermajority, which means they have to converse with the Democrats on certain things that they want done, which means that's a negotiation. That negotiation means that we can also get some stuff done. So that's a positive thing. You know, like David said, it's going to be a frustrating session because there's going to be a lot of grandstanding. And let's be honest, it's just going to piss us off because there are things that we can get done. We do work together. Democrats almost have to, right? We have to work with Republicans because of the situation we're in. They don't have to work with us. Any good bills that get done, it's more than likely that they work with Democrats to do them. So we have to go in with a mindset that the irritation is going to be at extreme levels. And they are going to grandstand those national issues that are extremely divisive. And so we've got to be focused on moving forward on stuff that's good and letting some of that slide off our backs a little bit. But with that being said, their grandstanding can push some bad stuff forward too, and we got to be prepared for that too. So it's going to be, you're going to be frustrated, we're going to be frustrated, but just so you know, we are going to make some gains in the next election, and there are people fighting the good cause just the same.
And I want to piggyback on what Adrian said about the specific to the House races. He's dead on, and dead on correct. And the pendulum is swinging. Okay, it is a pendulum, and people around the state are fed up with these extreme Republican policies. They've had enough, and all you have to do is go out and talk to people, and they're tired of it. There's always people in the margins who are going to make a lot of noise, but most people are sick of it. And we picked up seats last time. We went from 2 reps in Boone to 4. Adrian was a part of that wave, and we're going to keep picking up seats. So I'm optimistic, because Adrian is. I think that we have seats to pick up in the House, and we can break the supermajority. It's real, and we can do it. It's there. We just have to believe and do the work.
Okay, So I'm going to run through some of these in the chat because it's getting away from me over here. Okay, Mari already answered Kathy's or Ruth's. No. Too many. Kathy asked a while back, renters don't pay property tax, do they? And I would say no, only on vehicles, right?
That doesn't mean they don't have property though.
Oh, that's true. You might be a renter, but you might still have.
Well, they pay it when they pay their rent. That's why they are eligible for the circuit breaker to some extent, but it's less.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Hopefully that clears that up. And then David asked this question, really either of you could answer it. The difference between a PAC and a super PAC?
Is that for me?
It could be.
You want me
Go
to
ahead.
tackle that?
That's your bill. Yeah, that's your bill, Adrian. Go ahead.
So a PAC is a I have a committee. When I run for office, I have a committee, and that committee's represented usually by me and a treasurer and whoever else you want to put in there as officers. A PAC is a way of fundraising and taking in money. It's a different. I don't know what the technical name for it is, but they can raise money and spend money, but they can only donate to candidates at certain levels. Like as an individual, can only donate to me in a primary $2,000, but in the general they can donate another $2,000. So there's limits on what they can do as a PAC. Now they can also spend for a candidate without collaboration, which means I could start my own PAC. Let me rephrase that because that's not true. Mm-hmm. Somebody can start a PAC in my behalf, and they can raise and spend money on my behalf, but I can't coordinate with what they're doing.
So they
we would wink at each other. We would just cross the room. That's how we would coordinate.
And they could send a mailing. They could send postcards. A lot of times, if somebody's going to do negative campaigning against someone, a lot of times a PAC will do the negative campaigning, and that way the candidate can kind of stay clean looking. Yes. They could even pay people to go knock doors and organize that, but they can't talk to the candidate. They can't coordinate with the candidate. So it could be they end up duplicating their efforts, and that's just the risk.
So a super PAC, the difference between a PAC and a super PAC is a super PAC has a way to get donations, and those people donating can go through different charity groups to donate for them, which makes them untraceable. And I'm not just talking, I call it the rich man's union. It's their ability to concentrate the wealthy man's money into a PAC, a super PAC, where they can spend unlimited amounts of money all across the nation, as much as they want, and not be able to trace where it comes from. Now, I'm not talking about corporations and just billionaires. We're talking about other nations. It's stuff that you wouldn't even think of. And these super PACs were allowed to happen after the Citizens United went to the Supreme Court, and they said the more money you have, the more speech you have. That's essentially what it does. And so they're allowed to spend unlimited amounts of money to influence our elections. It's come to the point where, because of that, our judiciary system at the top has been purchased. They have been able to influence our politicians and our policy to the degree that they get exactly what they want, regardless of constitutionality or the benefit of citizens of the United States.
And the scary word there, what Adrian said, the scariest word is that word unlimited. And when you can receive unlimited amount of funds, you can do tremendously dangerous things.
Yeah.
Al Tacker has had his hand up for a bit, so let's see what he wants to ask, and then I'll go back to these ones in the chat.
Yeah, I had a question about the property tax bill. And as I understand it, the county commissions, who in this case don't even use property taxes, have the sole authority to reduce revenues for school districts, libraries, and I don't know, maybe rural fire
Yeah.
and water districts. How did that even happen?
It got pushed. Help me out there, David. I don't remember who pushed that bill, but it was from a lieutenant governor or something that pushed that bill through quite quickly. So it was a very limited amount of vetting on that bill. I think even a lot of us Democrats voted for it on the notion that in the midst of great inflation, that people in need really needed a break.
So the interesting thing about how that happened is that came in at the last minute.
Yes.
And it came through at the last minute. This was not a bill that had been thoroughly discussed throughout session. So a lot of times there's bills that are on everyone's radar. You're talking about them. You're talking about them in caucus. Everyone knows when they're coming to some degree or what's happening. This wasn't one of those bills. This was a bill that I think in the last few weeks, if that, even if maybe in the last 10 days, it came on the House floor, it got jammed through and people passed it, and it really didn't get discussed that much. Now, the county commissions have the authority at that point to make the decision about what's going to happen. So the ball still stops with them. It's still in their court. It's not a situation where it just automatically goes into effect. They have the ability to decide whether they're going to do that or not. So provide those cuts. So it's up to the commissions now to do something if they want to do it. I know they're looking at it. I don't know if they made a decision about exactly what they're going to do.
David, didn't some of the larger counties, St. Charles, maybe even St. Louis, pass it, though it may end up in court before it's enacted?
I'm not sure exactly what, like, for example, St. Charles did. I know that people are moving on it, I believe. I don't know that everyone's like, kind of put it under, tucked it under the rug. But I think some counties are actually doing something with it. But, here in Boone, nothing's happened as far as passing.
Yeah, there's only a handful of counties that's done it. I mean, it's sad that we push it to the county because the people who ought to take responsibility is the state, because all they're doing is going to create division with the county commissioners, and that's bad governing right there. And
and the other reality, if I can interject, is that in Boone County, very, very little of our property tax money goes to the county.
Yes.
Most of it goes to the schools. And so the county commissioners are being responsible in trying to make sure that they're not negatively impacting the library and the schools and all these other entities that actually get the majority of the money. So.
Yeah, and I know that Kip Kendrick has sent out a type of survey to the school districts. I know Harrisburg and Sturgeon has all got one of those surveys on how that might affect their bottom lines. And so if you really want to look at it, it's really just another way to defund the public education system on the notion that we're giving breaks to people in need. And I feel like that's necessary, but I think there's better ways to do it.
But Adrian, was cutting Social Security state taxes part of that bill or totally separate bill? And is that happening?
Say that again.
Cutting Social Security state taxes was also passed. Was it part of that bill or separate?
Yeah, I'm not sure. David, are you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think that was part of it. You double check. Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so it's going to be a little random, but going way back up to 12 question that happened at 12:20. Kathy asked, Adrian, do we know much about the impact of underwater hydroelectric generation on the health of rivers? Is there something to be concerned about there?
Well, sure. There's we developed damming systems, and that had an impact, right? So there are impacts and safeguards to protect your wildlife and your fish and that sort of thing. So, but there are ways to do that with underwater turbines to avoid that. Whether you can make a separate pathway for the water to go to, where you can kind of screen out fish coming through those turbines, or whatever that might be. But yeah, there are ways to address those problems.
Those concerns.
Possible problems.
Dave Taylor asks, what's the status of CAFO law in Missouri? Forgive me, have been addressed. Yeah, all right. There's a big question.
You know, CAFO issues come up all the time. I mean, since I've been down there, every time we're down there, there's bill or conversations about CAFOs. I know since 2019, there's only 3 like moderate to small CAFOs in existence in Missouri. There may be some ones that are really small, but I don't know if we've really made any substantive changes as far as CAFOs go. I know it comes up every time and is discussed, and we really have vehement, passionate discussions about it. I mean, it's one of those things that everyone gets into, but I don't know that we ever have done anything substantively to deal with those issues.
I'll say that we worked together on a foreign ownership bill, and that's part of that problem, right? It's part of that CAFO, the factory system, not the farming system. And so we worked together. We put together a bill in the House, and it was, I supported it in the notion that it kind of addressed it, but it was kind of a silly bill on the other hand. But the Senate came up with a bill I think we all agreed on that would limit foreign ownership of Missouri land. But that bill did not pass after it made it through the House. It went to the Senate. In the last 2 days, 2 senators filibustered, so that bill did not pass because of that, which means I get to run on that topic again. But I want to address the CAFO issue. That doesn't necessarily take care of the CAFO issue because it's a foreign ownership issue that they're trying to address, which could affect that. But there hasn't been substantial policy pushed to keep DNR from keep on. So they initiate and approve licensing for CAFOs, and so the DNR has never turned down a permit to start a CAFO, and CAFOs are a problem, especially when it comes to the health of our soil and our fish and our wildlife and people. Like I said before, a hog produces 5 times more waste than I do. And if you have a CAFO that's got 7,000 hogs and you put it next to a town like Fayette, Fayette treats their wastewater. They don't treat it out of the hog. And so you take 7,000 hogs times 5, you got a lot of freaking waste. And that waste has a lot of steroids and antibiotics in it, which means that goes into our streams. It's a major problem. And it's not really getting addressed to any degree at the State House.
So can I interject? Because obviously I have a scream in my head about the issue. The general answer, Adrian, is buried in that. There's a nugget is CAFOs are legal. It's a function of what is allowed. That was why county regulations were so important. Okay. And so whether or not there's a CAFO in your neighborhood becomes a political and legal struggle in your community. That is what the law is.
Yeah, and the little guy, the people who don't have time or can't fight hard enough are the ones who get stuck with them. Yeah. Let's see. So Steve Callis, I hope I'm saying that right, asks, what efforts are being made to support the composting industry? Interesting question.
That's I was pushing on that to at least a more degree last session. And I actually talked to Barbara Buffalo here in town about helping out with our composting issue here. We can have a composting pickup in Columbia. It's just a matter of willpower, and I think it needs to be done at the city level. But there may be a way to incentivize it at the state. Other than actually following through with that, that's the only thing keeping that from going further, I think. So, Steve, do you have any comment on that?
Unless we do something, like I said, to financially incentivize something, I think that's really a local issue. Unless we offer some type of incentives at the state legislature. But other than that, I would think that'd be primarily a city or county issue. Like Adrian said.
Some of that stuff is, my first appropriations ask was to be on ag. And I think that could have been further pushed on the ag appropriations. And that ag appropriations also would have helped me with some of that CAFO issues and that sort of thing, incentivizing no-till farming and hemp industry and all that stuff. So I've got friends on the ag side of it. So Steve, if you have any ideas on how to incentivize that at the state level, I am all ears.
Well, I'll fill your ear with some of them. I'll follow up after this.
Okay, so
Composting returns nutrients to the soil and helps enhance and return the soil to its previous fertility.
yes, I agree.
On the other side, there's the environmental benefits of diverting food waste from the landfill.
Right.
There's a draft rule coming out of EPA regarding food waste in landfills. And there's some other recent information along the same topic. I won't bore anybody with the details right now, but I will follow up with you, Adrian.
Okay, sounds good. Neighbor.
And we know from, that speaker we had from the global initiative, Hannah Evans, remember when she was here 3 weeks back? Food waste was one of the top 3 contributors to global warming. Like I'm still chewing that one over, more so than population, more so than fossil fuels. It's just food waste. So there's another way to impact that.
We waste 40% of what we produce. That's huge.
Yeah. So Adrian, while David's answering this, Kristen wanted to know which 6 House districts are going to be flippable. So I'll give you a chance to look that up while I ask, in case you need it, in case you need to get the numbers in mind. David, what are the most effective ways groups and individuals can support your bills that address gun availability? That's from Kathy.
Is that for me?
Yes, for David.
Show up at the Capitol and talk to people on the substantive committees where the bill may go. So if it goes to public safety, talk to the people in public safety about it, sit down with them. It's all about relationships. So the more relationships you have, the more people you can talk to. Individualized emails. I wouldn't do like a group email or an email that's the same over and over, but say it, this is who I am. I'm concerned about this issue. Don't make it really long because people won't read it, a couple paragraphs. But if you can just get down there and talk to people, I'm influenced when people show up and talk to me. I get a lot of emails, and if they're long, it's hard to get through, and I kind of skim them. If they're, I'm trying to get to a lot of them in a day. But if they're short, concise, especially if someone says I'm in your district. Now, if you're not in that person's district, it's hard. But if I read Representative Smith, I'm in your district, and here's where I live, I'm paying attention to that. I may even call the person on the phone. But when people come to my office, that makes a big difference. When I can see them, when I can touch them, when I can talk to them, they're there in front of me. That always plays a huge impact. What I did last session, I went to I got my bill turned into an amendment, and I was going to run it through this public safety committee. I talked to every person on that committee. And so it's a huge committee. They combine multiple committees, but I went to all of their offices. I sat down with, I became, as representatives, we become the lobbyists too. You're a representative, everyone's lobbying, right? So we're getting lobbied. I'm lobbying. I lobby over on the Senate side to senators, to their chiefs of staff. I lobby other reps. Other reps lobby me. Everyone's doing, we're all part of the same circle here, right? So I'm influenced when people talk to me, and then I go talk to people. I go sit down with these Republicans. Let's talk about it. I had a Republican, we're talking about guns. He pulls out his gun while we're sitting there in his office. Okay, whatever. But I talk to them and I sit down. So it's face-to-face, it's those relationships. And I would say if you could get in front of people who can make decisions, Lane Roberts is a friend. Lane Roberts last year he chaired that public safety committee. He's a good guy. He gets it. We've had good conversations, he and I. But he's getting all these pressures. He's a go-to guy. Talk to Lane and tell him your concerns, and he'll help move some of these things through, because that's what you need is you have to have friends over there on the Republican side to help grease these wheels.
Adrian, now I'm going to put you on the spot. Kristen asked, can you list those 6 House districts that, in your opinion, are flippable? What are they?
I'm getting them now.
Okay. I was trying
So
to give you this morning.
and I've sent a text to Alex Johnson. He said, give me a second.
Okay. All right. Let me know when you're ready. So we can go back to the softball question above that. Adrian, I'll let you talk first, and then David. Dave Taylor wanted to know, who is your LA, your legislative assistant, and what kinds of things do they help you with?
Well, Dustin Batts is mine. Most of you should know Dustin.
He won the Young Democrat of the Year at the Chili Supper last year,
Yeah.
if you remember.
I won't say he's the most favorite LA in the Capitol, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
We just sent him to Texas to learn about AI. He just got back last night. So him and Deb Lavender, he picked up Deb Lavender. So an LA can have 2 representatives under him. That's funny. So he's pretty active. He's also working with the state party on young Democrats and making sure they're activated at our colleges. So the types of things that he helps us with, oh my, so much.
Your newsletter, I think, right? The email that goes out.
Whenever I've got committee hearings, I can sit there in a committee hearing and say, hey, this guy said this. Can we verify this? Or, we had an instance where we had a lobbyist that we weren't familiar with and found out that he was from Texas or something like that. So we called him out for pushing bad policy in Missouri from Texas. Just verifying stuff that we're not able to do at a split second that he can do, and just send the messages. And that goes for the House floor too. Whenever we're here, Republicans say something stupid and we know it's stupid, we just don't know how to convey the stupidity of it. Then we can say, hey, can you confirm this? And so, there's all kinds of things.
He answers the phone and some
phone.
email, like constituent, kind of acts as a traffic cop for constituent concerns and things.
If there's a phone call with constituents, Dustin got a phone call with a veteran who was at least claiming he was about to commit suicide. So
I heard about that.
I was in committee, and he came to get me, and of course I was busy, and he handled it on his own. Which was fantastic. He got the authorities, because of that veteran lived in Columbia, and so he sent authorities over there. They had to figure out where he lived and all this other stuff, because he didn't give us really any information. So there's all kinds of stuff. He helps me, like right now he's helping me get with the school districts, and I'm going to give the 3rd graders a little government class on how things work at the Capitol. So we're doing that right now for 3rd graders in Harrisburg. We're going to also go to Sturgeon and do that sort of thing. So making sure constituents are aware of money that they can get from the state, lost funds that they can recover, stuff like that, we talk about. And as Democrats, we have to really take care of the constituents very well and make sure that our municipality, especially, I've got the most rural of any Democrat, so I want to make a big difference in the rural areas, so we can be an example, so we can try and gain more rural areas.
Right.
So we're helping. So like Sturgeon and Harrisburg have water treatment issues. They're trying to expand. They're almost tapped out, so we're working with them to get grants to. And so he does some of that background work also. When I'm doing the things that I do every day. So
maybe it was not fair for me to have you go first. I should have thought that through.
Yeah.
Because Dustin is kind of a rock star. Poor David. Now he's going to try to follow that. Could you talk to us?
No.
Can you talk to us about your LA and how she helps you?
Yeah, absolutely. So and I like Bax. He's great. So Lorna Cochran was my legislative assistant, and she's been there a while. She was Kip Kendrick's legislative assistant. So it's great to kind of keep that going. And I told her this the other day, she is fantastic with constituent services. She is amazing. And she works so well with people, because a lot of times what'll happen is, so someone calls me or they email me and they say, I'm having trouble with the state agency, I'm not getting benefits, or I'm having this issue, or I can't reach somebody. And so I'll talk to them. figure out what the issue is. And I can say, Lorna, can you start doing the work? And so she will actually make the phone calls, all that hard, laborious stuff where you have to be placed on hold for an hour or an hour and a half or whatever. And she'll get through and fix the problem. So we can put out a lot of fires and fix a lot of issues. So people can call, hey, I have a question about this issue. I can't get through to somebody. Or I've got a relative that's suffering with this, or we're having funding issues, or I can't get through to this agency. And so I'll put her on it, and she will solve the issue. And that's what she does. And she's very good.
A lot of time. And a lot of time.
Oh my goodness.
You don't have to do it. She's taking care of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about
hours.
calling these agencies, tracking the people down that need to be talked to,
Sitting
going
on
back
hold,
and forth.
like you said.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So she's good about that. And she's really good with people, because a lot of times, you have to, the bottom line is you have to have someone who's good with people. And especially in this job we have, because people want to make sure they're heard and they're taken care of. And she just got a way of dealing with people, calming people down, explaining things to people. And so she's great about that. And that,
because when they call you, they're often upset, I'm sure. They wouldn't.
Oh yeah, because there's a problem.
They didn't have a problem. Yeah.
Right.
And so
right. Which is,
special
and I'm
skill.
okay with that. That's what we do.
Right.
Our job is to solve problems.
But you're right. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to
Right.
take that upset person and turn that into a productive conversation, because they're in that emergency mindset and you got to calm them down,
Absolutely.
figure out what they actually need. And yeah, that is
Absolutely. And to have she has the experience to deal with, if it's a federal issue, where to go and how to do it. Because sometimes people call and they don't know it's a state issue, it's a federal issue, sometimes a combination of both. And we have liaisons that we deal with, and she's very good at reaching out to liaisons to deal with issues, whether it's a prison liaison or dealing with health issues, or a doctor says, I've got this problem and it's complicated. And we talk about it or communicate about it, and I'll say, figure this out. And then she'll go and talk and give me that. I can go back to the constituent and get the information, or tours. So people come up and they want to meet me. She aligns that. She takes them on tours or lines up for people to walk through the Capitol. And then she puts together information for our committees. She does a good job of that. So I have binders ready to go when I show up for committee. Everything's put together and I can go down there and I'm ready to go. And then she does things I don't like. But I give into, gives me cinnamon rolls sometimes. So, she I appreciate her, because if she knows I haven't eaten all day, I'm joking about not liking. She'll know sometimes, because our schedule is such. Sometimes we start at noon, and you can be down there 12 hours and you don't have any food. And she'll say, she'll talk. Here's something to eat real quick, so you can get a bite before you go to your committee. So she's good about that too.
I am mindful that it's already 1 o'clock and we want to make sure we don't keep you gentlemen too long. It looked like you heard back from Alex. God love Alex Johnson. Do you want to throw those 6 districts out?
Yeah, I haven't heard back from Alex, but Wikipedia says District 17, 105, 100, 133, 101, 30, and 96. And
don't forget the 44th.
Yeah.
That's not.
I'm not quitting.
He's not quitting, but we're talking about ones where it's a really thin. He's got a hard race. There's some that aren't going to be that hard to
Well, and I know one of the races is it Allen, Paul Allen, Rep Allen. He beat a Republican friend of mine.
That's 37 vote one. That's 17, I think.
And that's what's his name?
Shirley Mehta.
The Republican that got beat. The Democrat that got beat last time. What is his name? He's an attorney. I'm blanking on it. But anyway, that's a seat that can be flipped.
Is Shirley Mehta's district razor thin? Is it one of the at-risk ones?
The 34th district.
Yeah.
Looks like Mari's got something to add to this. She's looking urgent. You go ahead and hop in.
I'm sorry. No, I had another question.
Oh, go for it. You've had your hand up a really long time.
I don't want to interrupt.
No, you're good.
My question I have a question and a comment. The comment first is, Adrian, I'm so glad you are on the Public Safety and Corrections Appropriations Subcommittee. And I just want to put in a plug. I volunteer at the Booneville Prison with men who are going to be getting out very soon. And some of them have been in for a long time. And the ones who have access to vocational programs, so that they know they're going out into learning to be a truck or getting their CBD or their driver's license, whatever the initials are, or learning to be a forklift driver or learning to be a welder. they are so positive about leaving prison, whereas the ones who don't have access to that can be very scared sometimes, and
Well-
rightly so.
Well,
So
let me give you some direction. I'm also on workforce development.
mhm.
So we've had these discussions when it comes to prison, and prisoners getting out and needing a way to have a viable income to support themselves so they stay out of trouble. Of course, I've talked to, there's a prison there in Jeff City, and they do some work in the prisons, whether it's wood products and steel products and stuff that the prisoners make if they're good behavior prisoners. And I have talked to them about talking to the unions in committee. I've talked to them in committee and said, hey, I will help you in any way I can to get a hold of the union leaders to get them into a union program that will continue their education while they work on union wages and benefits. And so if you're in Booneville, you can do the same. Tell them, hey, holler at Adrian. You know, they can call me and I'll help them get into IBEW. They can be an electrician or carpenters or pipe fitters, sprinkler fitters, insulators. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they can do that would be a career with benefits and retirement.
That would be great. And they do have programs to train some of the men in some of these trades. So I hope there's a connection. That's way above my pay grade, but I hope there's a connection there with the unions as well.
You know, the problem I had with the folks that were representing the prison system there in Jeff City is after I told them all this and told them I would help them in any way I can, they never called me back.
Yeah,
They never back out. Now I can keep reaching out to them.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking in your role on the appropriations committee, funding for those kinds of programs that's under debate, please, sounds like you'll support that. And then my question was, granted that 2024 is an election year and that the conservatives are going to be out conservativing each other, do you two have any sense of what bills related to voting might be coming up in terms of the initiative petition process or voter ID or just voter rights in general, purging of the voter rolls? Have you heard anything about what's in the works?
Yeah, so I'm on the elections committee, and so every year is just a parade of horribles as far as the bills, but we've been able to beat them back other than that omnibus bill that passed the last session, the session before last. So initiative petition is always under attack. They always come after that, and there's a slew of bills, and they always have a weird variant to them, but they just want to increase the threshold for passing an initiative petition. And last year, they almost did it, but they didn't. They failed. They failed every year. Last year, they out of committee, I think it went up to 60%, but then went over the Senate, came out at like 57%. So as opposed to getting 50% plus one, it was 57, but then that failed. So that's what they mainly attack. And, you know, they've been trying with the voter ID laws and they got that, right? There is a provision that needs to be repealed back on that by the, I'm kind of digressing, but one of the laws that went into effect, which there's an injunction now against it. It says if you get 10 people, more than 10 people to register to vote, you have to register or get licensed, which is a total joke. It's ridiculous. There's no reason for that. It doesn't make any sense. The only purpose is to slow down voting because it's just a form you fill out. They don't check, they don't review it, they don't call people to see if anyone's compliant or they're not criminals. It's just another step, another barrier. And there's currently an injunction against that. So that's something, and I offered an amendment last session in committee to strip that out. So hopefully that that'll get stripped out again this year if we can do something about it. But it's the initiative petition primarily is what is the main thing they're going to try to get at.
Yeah. So you don't think they're going to try to purge the rolls like they have in other states?
Well, they may try to do that too. But as far as, I mean, like getting like who off of the rolls, I mean, I don't have an issue with them going through the rolls and making sure that the right people are on the rolls.
In some states, they've just been a little more too aggressive and they've removed actual voters, I think is what Marty said.
By the hundreds of thousands in some states. Yeah.
And then you go to vote and you're an actual voter and they're like, no, you don't count. We've taken you off.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, one of the problems I have, yeah, I could see that happening, and they do that. If they do that, it's going to be a roundabout way. So they're not going to say that they're doing that. It's going to be something else. One of the other issues is they try to strip funding from our local county clerks. They give too much power to the Secretary of State and allow them to go in and supervise them. And if they're not compliant with certain provisions, then they lose funding. And they're already, I mean, their funding's already thin anyway.
Yeah.
That's another issue, by the way, is this. One of the things we have to be careful about, and I hate to go here, I mean, because it's kind of a bigger picture and we're out of time, but what people are doing around the country, it's not just in Missouri, but putting mechanisms in place. So if someone runs for president and they didn't win, to keep them as president. And that's very scary right now. So there are things coming through our committee to give the Secretary of State's office a lot more power in the event we have another situation where someone says they've won the presidency and they were cheated. So the Secretary of State can take over. That's something we need to be careful about. And that's very scary. So it's happening around the country and it's happening in Missouri.
Thanks for that warning. Let's let the Telemus question be the last one. And remember, if you're a dues paying member, if you'll please hang around for just a few more minutes, the very next thing we'll do is do our vote.
Adrian, David,
Yeah.
thank you for coming before us. We are proud of both of you. Would you do us the courtesy of identifying your websites where people can go to donate or volunteer, and or the names of your committees and addresses where they can do similarly by snail mail?
Feel free to drop it in the chat, or I can type it in as you talk. David, do you want to go first? Adrian, hop in.
Yeah, so there's a davidtysonsmith.com website. It should have, I'm looking at it now, I believe it should have a volunteer piece, a donate link. So yeah, davidtysonsmith.com. You can go there and donate, send mail. You can do, I believe it has an Act Blue link and all of those good things. And also you can, my house address, or you can go to the regular house address for my house, contact information, numbers, address, that type of thing. If you're ever down there, obviously feel free to come see me anytime. I'll definitely meet with anybody, any of you. I'd love to do that. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, the Elections Committee. I'm on the Rules Committee, so about half the bills come through that committee for a vote. I'm on JCAR, Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, so anytime there's an executive order dealing with those rules, they come through for a vote. I think I've covered, I feel like I'm missing something. Judiciary, elections, I'm on emerging issues as well. So I'm about 4 or 5, because I've also been placed on Ethics Committee. So yeah.
We've got in the chat, there's links to both of their websites. That'll be a shortcut. Adrian, what did you want to add? Read same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I'd encourage you, if y'all have any questions or problems or situations, we treat our constituents first, obviously, but if there's something that you need or are concerned about, you're okay to get a hold of our office. And Dustin answers that phone, but it's 573-751-1501. And I can put in the chat also.
I'll do it. 751-1501.
Yeah.
There it is.
And you can also email him, dustin.backs@house.mo.gov. Either way, they go to me also. So when the email comes up, it pops up for both of us. Because we get a lot of emails. We get a lot of emails. And then of course you can always donate. You can go to Adrian Plank 47 at gmail.com to email me. And you can also send checks to Friends of Adrian Plank, P.O. Box 10145. And that's Columbia, Missouri 65205. Now, I don't have an opponent at the moment. Neither does David, I don't believe.
It'd be a little surprising if David picked one up, but I fully expect somebody's going to try to take your seat.
I fully expect
because of that rural population.
Well, why did John Martin run away?
Well, I worked his tail off for one, so you get to work his tail off. So he went over to the 44th. I think he's probably using one of his relatives over there.
Right. Yeah, he's over
Yes.
harassing. He's over
His-
harassing David now.
His brother inherited the family farm. It's currently worked by his nephews.
Yeah.
But he's using that as
Question
his
is-
address to justify running against Dave Rathel now. Good luck with that.
Now Martin has a primary opponent, and I talked to my brother yesterday, who is a Republican, an alderman in Ashland. He's also still considering running for that spot too, so he may have two primary opponents. And so that would be excellent. And
Let
it
him
would
use
be-
up those resources in a primary. Gotta love it.
I mean, John works it hard. So it's going to be a battle for the other two, even my brother, to beat him. But it would be pretty funny to have two Planks beating.
He and I have been showing up at the city council meetings. He missed the last one that I was at, but maybe he got it before I showed up. I don't know, but yes, we're out there.
And I just want to say one thing. I know it's time's up.
That's
but-
fine. I'm just worried about you all because I know you have other things.
I just want to leave you guys with one thing. I'm excited that Muleskinners is going strong. And I always love seeing your faces, both on video and in person. But we are in a great place in a certain sense. And I know it's easy to get discouraged, but I believe in hope. And I believe it's time to believe again. And we're close, friends. We're close to doing big things. If we continue to do the work, continue to show up, it's there. It's within our grasp. And if we don't give up and we keep going forward, we can see tremendous things. And tremendous things can happen in Missouri and around the country if we just keep moving forward. I think we're closer than we think. And sometimes it's hard. We get discouraged what happened in 2016. But I'm seeing a change in the communities. I'm seeing even a change on the House floor. And so if we believe and continue to move forward, we're gonna do big things, amazing things that might even surprise ourselves. So keep doing the hard work, keep showing up, keep getting out there. I'm working, Adrian's working. I know you guys are working, and let's do big things. I believe it, and it's gonna happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here doing this.
And I could throw a little bit more hope at you too. We have an opportunity to pick up a Senate seat here just in central Missouri with Stephen Weber, and having that Senate seat under a Democrat and having the rest of us as Democrats in the House is a huge gain for us in Boone County. That means we have people who are willing to listen to us on policy, and we can work together in the Senate and the House to push that policy. And that's huge.
And I preach the doctrine that if everybody else goes blue and I'm left out there, there's a red guy in Boone, we're still technically purple. We don't want Boone purple. We want Boone blue. And that means dragging my ass along as consternating as I can be.
I can promise you, Dave, that if we don't have opponents, we'll be supporting you as much as humanly possible.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get more good news than you might hear. I have more encouragement news, but
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you,
You
gentlemen.
need
for
to
your time.
find Dave Rathel somebody to do his stuff on the internet.
Well, let's save that for another time. I want to make sure we get to this vote. It's 1:15 and we
All
need to
right.
make sure we have a quorum. So I'm gonna, if you're a dues paying member within the last year, hopefully you know who you are. David Mallory, I'm gonna pass it off to him.